Imagine a vast horizon where the mind unfolds like an infinite ocean, filled with possibilities and creative power. There, in that vast field of consciousness, an unbreakable truth is born. Abundance is not a distant goal nor a reward reserved for a few. It is a state of being, an essence that vibrates in every atom of the universe. In this text, you will delve into the profound and transformative wisdom of Emmet Fox, one of the most influential spiritual thinkers of the 20th century. Through his words, you will learn to see prosperity not as the result of struggle or accumulation, but as a natural manifestation of a mind aligned with universal harmony. Prepare yourself for a journey that will lead you to dismantle the limiting beliefs that have held back your greatness. You will discover that the power to attract well-being, success, and happiness lies within you, waiting to be awakened. Allow these teachings to ignite a flame of certainty and empowerment in your heart. Open your mind and spirit, for you're about to experience a transformation that will redefine your way of perceiving the world and yourself. Welcome to the beginning of a prosperous, abundant, and fulfilling life. The world has made money either a cruel master or a feared enemy. It is pursued with anxiety, condemned with guilt, and desired with shame. It has been taught that money is the root of all evil, when in truth, evil does not lie in money itself, but in the consciousness that distorts it. For in its purest essence, money is nothing more than the tangible manifestation of an invisible spiritual principle, the principle of divine supply. When you look at the universe with awakened eyes, you discover a truth that completely transforms your relationship with matter. God is order. God is fullness. God is provision. Nowhere in creation is there lack. The sun does not measure its light. The sea does not limit its waves. The air does not count its breaths. Everything flows from the source in an uninterrupted expression of sufficiency. And if you are a child of that same principle, made in its image and likeness, why would anything be lacking for you? Scarcity is not a condition established by God, but an experience generated by the human mind's disconnection from spiritual truth. It is a misperception, an inner fog that has become collective. But when you begin to remember who you are, when you recognize that the only source of all good is God, and that this source is within you, scarcity dissolves like a shadow before the light. This book is not a treatise on economics, nor is it a magical formula to attract money. It is a path of return to the spiritual consciousness of abundance, not so that you may worship money, but so that you may understand its sacred place as an instrument of good. Money is a divine idea. It is a symbol of circulation. It is energy shaped to serve, to exchange, to expand good in all directions. It is not dirty. It is not impure, it is not inferior. It is as spiritual as a prayer when it is born from an elevated consciousness. I have seen righteous souls live in hardship because they have not known how to accept the good that God has prepared for them. And I have seen others surrounded by material possessions, yet empty of purpose, enslaved by the fear of loss, trapped in the false power of soulless matter. Both conditions are extremes of the same error, forgetting that provision is not in things but in consciousness. True prosperity does not begin with an income, but with an idea, and that idea is clear. All good comes from God, and God dwells within me. When you assimilate this truth, work is no longer struggle but expression. Money is no longer a fight but a reflection. Provision is no longer chance but manifestation. Your life ceases to be driven by necessity and begins to flow with inspiration because you have discovered that wealth is a state of the soul before it is a number in an account. In these pages, we will walk together through the eternal principles that make money a sacred tool. You will learn to think rightly about supply, to affirm with power the truth of your prosperous being, to release the limiting beliefs that have blocked the flow of good, and to become not one who begs, but one who expresses. For God does not give from the outside, God expresses from within, and when that expression is allowed to flow without resistance, it translates into opportunities, open doors, exact resources, unforeseen paths, and constant abundance, not as a reward for your goodness, but as a consequence of your alignment. This is not a book to make you rich. It is a book to remind you that you already are, for you were created by the infinite source, and the infinite does not give birth to limitation. Abundance is not a privilege of the few nor a future promise. It is your spiritual inheritance, available now, if you are willing to claim it with faith, understanding, and love. There is no power outside of you that determines your provision. There is only one law, one consciousness, one source, God within you. And when that God begins to act freely through your thoughts, your words, and your actions, the material world that once seemed closed will open, align, and serve you. You were born to live in peace, in purpose, in provision, not to survive, but to express the abundance of the kingdom. And this book is a key that does not open an external chest, but the inner chamber where the true treasure has always been kept. Your awakened consciousness. Now take this key with love and let us begin together this journey back to divine supply. The invisible gold is waiting for you, and you are ready to remember it. The Mind of Abundance, Prosperity as a State of Being, by Emmet Fox. We have noticed that over 90% of those who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and giving the video a like. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. God is your provision, the only source of all good. The most important and often most forgotten principle of spiritual supply is this: God is your only provision, not one of your sources, not one help among many, the only one. The fundamental error of the human mind is attributing its sustenance to external factors: a job, a business, a person, a government, a contract, an inheritance. And as long as that belief remains active, consciousness will live enslaved by the fear of loss, the anxiety of obtaining, and the conflict between what is and what might be lacking. God is not a religious idea. He is the first cause of all good. He is not a being who distributes favors according to secret criteria. He is the unchanging principle of total and present good. When it is said that God is your provision, it is not a statement of hope, but an eternal truth. Every manifestation of well-being that has come into your life, every coin, every meal, every opportunity, has, in its deepest root, been an expression of the one and only source, God Himself. But the conditioned mind does not see it this way. It believes that if the job is lost, so is income. It believes that if a person leaves, so does sustenance. It believes that if the market crashes, its value crashes with it. And that belief generates fear, and that fear cuts off the flow. Because spirit cannot manifest freely in a consciousness bound by fear. As long as you believe that your provision comes from things, you will constantly struggle to keep them. But when you discover that provision comes from consciousness aligned with God, you stop being afraid. And the law begins to work without obstacles. You were not made to depend on the world. You were made to govern it from within. Not through control, but through alignment. Not through effort, but through understanding. God does not need intermediaries to bless you. God does not wait for external conditions to provide for you. God expresses Himself the moment your mind allows it. And that expression can take the form of money, yes, but it can also come as an idea, an open door, a person who appears, an unexpected solution, or an inspiration worth more than 1,000 methods. Supply is not money. It is divine energy that takes form according to the channel it finds available. When you recognize this, you begin to live from trust. You stop seeking security outside and start generating security from consciousness. And then, even if everything in the external world changes, you remain at peace because you know that the source is within you, not outside of you. The world may change, economic systems may fluctuate, visible sources may disappear, but true provision does not run out, does not hide, does not retreat. It remains alive, available, present, waiting for you to recognize it as your own. Jesus lived from this consciousness, and He had no job, no property, no bank account, yet He lacked nothing, because He knew and lived the truth that sets free. My Father and I are one. And when you need provision, that is the only true prayer. God and I are one, therefore all I need is already given. Do not ask for money to come. Ask to see that the source is already within you. Do not beg for an opportunity. Declare that God is guiding you to the perfect channel, and do not plead for help. Affirm with faith that good is working now silently in the unseen. The first step toward a prosperous life is not earning more, nor changing jobs, nor finding a new system. The first step is recognizing, without hesitation, that God is your only provision and that this provision has no limits because spirit does not know lack. There is no economic crisis in the divine mind. There is no inflation in the kingdom of heaven. There is no debt in the awakened soul. Everything you need already exists in spiritual form. And that spiritual form can materialize in 1,000 different ways if your mind stops obstructing it. The channel is secondary. The source is primary. It does not matter how it comes. What matters is knowing that it comes, because God cannot fail to be who He is. Begin to declare, God is my eternal provision. Good flows to me from all directions. Nothing and no one can separate me from the source. I am in unity with abundance now. Repeat these truths not as magic formulas but as keys of consciousness. Every time you say them with faith, you are tearing the veil of illusion and allowing the light to enter where there was once shadow. God does not withhold. He waits for you to recognize. God does not punish. He responds to your vibration. And when your vibration says, I trust, I know, I accept, then what seemed blocked is released. You do not need conditions to change. You need to change consciousness. And when you do, you will see that conditions naturally follow this new direction. Because abundance does not come to you. It flows from you. And that is the highest truth about provision. God is your provision, the only one, the eternal one, the sufficient one, the present one. And when the mind accepts this without reservation, the world, the obedient reflection of your inner state, begins to multiply bread where there was no wheat, open paths where there were walls, and release the concrete manifestation of good that has always been waiting for you to recognize it as your own. Chapter 2. The consciousness of wealth, thought, feeling, and vibration aligned with the law. True wealth does not begin with a sum of money or a favorable circumstance. It begins with an inner state. This is what we call the consciousness of wealth, and it is the true foundation upon which every lasting manifestation of provision is built. It is not about thinking of money. It is not about repeating empty phrases. It is not about pretending prosperity. It is about aligning thought, feeling, and vibration with the law of good. Because like attracts like, and the universe does not give you what you ask for with your lips, but what you hold within your inner energy. Every person lives surrounded by an invisible atmosphere, a vibrational field generated by their habitual way of thinking and feeling. That field is a magnet, an antenna, a continuous broadcast that intertwines with the creative forces of the universe. If that atmosphere is filled with fear, scarcity, unworthiness, or struggle, then even if you work hard, you will be blocking the entry of good. Not because good does not exist, but because your consciousness is not aligned with its frequency. That is why poverty is not merely the lack of money, it is a mental attitude. And wealth is not just material abundance, it is a deep vibration of sufficiency, gratitude, peace, and openness. When you think of wealth with peace, feel abundance with joy, and vibrate in unity with universal provision, you are operating from the consciousness of wealth. And in that state, external conditions have no choice but to reflect what is already established within you. It is not about pretending prosperity. It is about recognizing that you are already immersed in an abundant universe, and that everything necessary for your perfect expression is available right now, if you know how to tune in. The law of good is like a radio station. It transmits constantly, but only those who adjust their dial can hear it. Your thought is that dial, your feeling is the amplifier, your vibration is the signal you send into the field of life, and what you project returns to you, multiplied. How is the consciousness of wealth formed? Not through external accumulation, but through internal training. Every time you choose to affirm truth instead of yielding to fear, you strengthen that consciousness. Every time you bless what you have, instead of complaining about what is missing, you tune into the flow of good. Every time you give with joy and receive with gratitude, you open your energetic field to unlimited supply. The consciousness of wealth is cultivated like a garden. It is cleared of weeds, old beliefs of lack, guilt, and separation. It is watered with elevated ideas, affirmations of humility, sufficiency, and divine order. It is protected with loving vigilance by guarding what you think, what you feel, and what you decree. You cannot live in peace and abundance if every day you declare, consciously or unconsciously, there's never enough. Everything is too expensive. I don't know how I'm going to make it. Things always go wrong for me. Every word is a seed. Every thought is an order to the universe, and every emotion is a pact with a vibrational reality. The soul that desires to manifest wealth must first break its fascination with lack. It must stop talking about what is missing. It must stop fearing loss. It must stop associating money with sin, suffering, or struggle. And it must begin to think of money as a legitimate expression of divine abundance. Not as an end, but as a means to express more life, more love, more purpose, more service. The consciousness of wealth is not arrogance or vanity. It is deep humility before the perfect order of God. It is saying, I accept all the good that is mine by divine right, and I accept it with joy, without fear, without guilt, without hesitation. Many people pray for abundance but vibrate in rejection. They ask for prosperity but do not feel worthy of receiving it. They declare faith but live expecting disaster. That is not consciousness of wealth, that is inner duality. And duality does not manifest, it blocks. When you align thought, feeling, and vibration, then the soul becomes a pure channel. And provision, which has always been available, begins to manifest in natural, fluid, and precise ways. Start today. Observe your thoughts about money. Listen to your words. Watch your emotions when you pay, charge, give, or receive. And wherever you find fear, replace it with truth. Wherever you find scarcity, affirm fullness. Wherever you feel anxiety, declare peace. Exercise your consciousness of wealth in small things. Be grateful for the water, the bread, the shelter, the light. Bless your wallet even if it is empty. Declare provision even if you do not see the channel. Vibration adjusts with perseverance, and the law responds with precision. Do not fear apparent delays. You are reprogramming centuries of collective thought based on fear. But if you remain firm, you will see the fruit. Because the law cannot fail, good does not hide, and you are not separate from anything that God is. Think with truth, feel with gratitude, vibrate with certainty, and the wealth that is already yours in spirit will descend into the visible plane as an exact, timely, and blessed form. Because when the soul becomes fertile ground, the seed of good, which has always been ready, blooms effortlessly. And abundance, silent but invincible, envelops you inside and out as the inevitable manifestation of consciousness aligned with the law. Chapter 3, There is no lack in God, breaking the illusion of scarcity. Scarcity is a mirage, an illusion sustained by the human mind that has forgotten its origin. It does not exist in God, nor in His perfect creation, nor in the principle that governs the universe with absolute order. God does not know lack. He cannot be in need. He cannot diminish. And if the soul was made in His image and likeness, how could scarcity be a real part of its inheritance? Lack is, at its root, a misperception. It is seeing through the eyes of separation, believing in a fragmented universe, thinking that good is limited, that there are few resources, few opportunities, little love, little time. But all of this is a lie, repeated for centuries until it became a system. And now, much of the world lives within that erroneous system of thought, building economies, religions, and ideas based on the belief that something is missing. But truth does not change, even if most deny it. The truth is this: there is no lack in God, and therefore there is no real lack in you. Divine creation is abundant by nature. Life itself in its design is made to multiply, expand, and flourish. A single seed contains the potential for thousands of fruits. A single idea, born in the mind, can transform into an empire of good. The air you breathe does not run out because you breathe more. Everything that comes from God operates under the law of sufficiency, not the law of limitation. Where does the experience of scarcity come from? It comes from the mind disconnected from the source. It comes from a consciousness hypnotized by appearances. It comes from inherited beliefs, repeated and accepted without question. And that mind, when it holds thoughts of, I don't have it, I can't, it's never enough, it's too hard, it creates a vibrational field that blocks the natural flow of good. Scarcity is not divine will, it is a mental manifestation. It is a fog that prevents you from seeing the fullness that is already present. And that fog can only be dissolved by light, the light of spiritual recognition. It is not enough to desire abundance. You must uninstall the internal structure that believes in lack. You must watch over every thought that speaks of limitation. You must transform your language. Stop repeating phrases like, there are no jobs, everything is too expensive, money is never enough, it's too difficult. Every word is an order, every affirmation is a seed, and the universe does not respond to superficial intention. It responds to vibration. The miracle of multiplication. When Jesus multiplied the loaves, He did not act from anxiety. He did not ask how much money there was. He did not calculate whether it was possible. He operated from the consciousness that there is no lack in God. He lifted His eyes, gave thanks, and broke the bread. And the miracle was not something external. It was the natural reflection of a consciousness that refused to accept lack as reality. You too can live from that consciousness. You do not need to master human techniques or complex strategies. You only need to remember that you live in a spiritual universe, and that spirit precedes and governs the material. When that truth becomes flesh in you, everything changes. Not because things appear magically, but because you align with the principle of universal supply. And then, what was already available finds its perfect channel in you. Let go of the idea of scarcity. Let go of the belief that good is scarce. Let go of the idea that you must struggle to receive what is yours by divine right. Let go of the guilt for desiring more. The desire for expansion is natural. It is not greed. It is divine impulse. God does not want you to just survive, and He wants you to fully express the good that you already are. How to break the illusion of scarcity? Start by looking at the world with new eyes. When you see abundance, bless it. Do not envy it. Do not criticize it. Do not question it. Blessing another's abundance is affirming that abundance is also possible for you. When you pay for something, do not think, now I have less, and think, good circulates and returns multiplied. When the thought arises, it's not enough. Answer, in God everything is available to me. The consciousness of scarcity is a prison without bars, but a prison nonetheless. And the key to freedom is within you. It is found in declaring with faith that there is no lack in God. God is my source. I am united with eternal fullness, and everything I need is given to me now in divine order. Each time you affirm this truth, you break another chain. Each time you choose to trust instead of fear, you move closer to freedom. Each time you think from abundance, you give God permission to work through you. Trust the process. Do not worry about how it will manifest. The how is not your task. Your task is to but think with faith, feel with peace, live with certainty, and the universe will take care of the means. Scarcity, like every illusion, vanishes when it is confronted with truth. And the truth is this: God is totality, God is presence, God is good, and you live, move, and exist within that God. Therefore, you cannot lack anything. Affirm this until it becomes flesh in you. Hold this vision until it vibrates in every cell. And then the fog will lift, the doors will open, and the world, that obedient mirror of your consciousness, will show you that there was never scarcity, only forgetfulness. But now you remember, and that remembrance is the first manifestation of your divine inheritance. Chapter 4. Money as a divine idea beyond paper, the spiritual symbol of exchange. The human mind, conditioned by centuries of spiritual ignorance, has turned money into an object of fear, desire, guilt, and worship. It is chased as if it were the solution to all problems, and at the same time, it is despised as if it were the root of all evil. It is feared for its power, and condemned for its influence, never truly understanding what it really is, a divine idea. Money at its purest essence. Money in its purest essence is nothing more than a symbol that represents an exchange, circulation, recognition of value, expression of energy. The paper that represents it, the numbers in a bank account, the coins, contracts, and visible forms, these are just temporary wrappings. The real thing is the idea behind it. And that idea comes from spirit. That is why, when money is understood spiritually, it is not dirty, impure, or an enemy of the soul. It is a noble, useful, and temporary form of representing the flow of good in the visible world. The divine principle behind money. God, who is the principle of order, abundance, and perfect circulation, did not create money itself, but He did create the principles that make it possible. Where there is life, there is movement. Where there is movement, there is exchange. Where there is exchange, there is recognition of value. And in a civilized plane, that recognition takes form as money. Therefore, money is not the problem. The problem is the consciousness that worships it or fears it, the mind that denies it or chases it, the judgment that condemns it or hoards it. The problem is not in the symbol, but in the ignorance of its spiritual origin. Money as a divine idea. Money is a divine idea because it is born from the need to give and receive. And giving and receiving are two aspects of the same law, the law of love in action. Where there is love, there is a desire to share. And where there is true sharing, the universe must provide the proper channels for that expression to be possible. One of those channels is money. Purifying your relationship with money. When you bless money, you free it from judgment. When you use it with consciousness, you turn it into a prayer. When you give it with joy, you transform it into a seed. When you receive it with gratitude, you make it a testimony of good. Money has never been the problem. The consciousness of separation has. The belief that there is not enough, that you are undeserving, that if one has, another must lose. That fragmented thinking contaminates the symbol. But the symbol itself is neutral, like water, like fire, like words. Its value lies in intention, usage, the energy behind it. Healing your mind about money. If you want to live in peace with money, begin by healing it in your mind. Do not criticize it and do not reject it. Do not sanctify it, simply understand it. And once you understand it, use it for what it truly is. A temporary expression of an eternal idea, a tool to circulate good, a visible form of recognizing value in yourself and others, a manifestation of divine order in the material world. Changing your internal dialogue about money. When you pay for something, do not think, "I'm losing money." Instead, affirm, "I am circulating energy. I am recognizing value. I am affirming my abundance." When you receive payment, do not think that they are taking from me. Instead, declare that I am receiving what is just. I am harvesting what I have sown. I am opening more channels of provision. Money flows where there is clarity. It stagnates where there is fear. When you see money as a divine idea, you free it from all emotional burdens. And then, it can circulate freely in your life, not as a goal, but as a reflection. Not as a god, but as an instrument. Not as something that defines you, but as something that you define with your consciousness. Want more money? Begin by understanding it. If you want to have more money, do not start by asking for it. Start by understanding it. Understand that it does not come from others, nor from luck, nor from physical effort alone. It comes from your level of alignment with the spiritual idea that sustains it. And that alignment is achieved when you think with truth, feel with peace, and act with purpose. The mind that sees money as an enemy rejects it, even while longing for it. The mind that idolizes money becomes its slave, even while possessing it. Only the mind that recognizes it as a divine idea can live in balance with it. The flow of true abundance. Remember, money is not something to fear. Money is not something to worship. Money is not something to chase, and it is something to understand, bless, channel. And when you do that, when your consciousness is clear, when there is no more guilt or attachment, when you use every coin as an act of creation, then money will flow to you and through you, like a river that never dries up, because it knows that its source is not in its banks, but in the invisible spring that feeds it without end. That spring is God, and money, when correctly understood, is just one of his many forms of expression. Chapter 5. Faith as Wealth, the invisible capital that creates all manifestation in the material world. Capital is often spoken of as the foundation of every enterprise, every project, every expansion. It is said that whoever lacks capital cannot start, cannot grow, cannot achieve. But there is a capital far deeper, far more powerful, far more decisive than any sum of money: faith. Because faith is the invisible capital that originates and sustains all true manifestation. Nothing great has ever been born without faith. Everything that has been created with purpose, beauty, lasting impact, has begun with an idea, sustained by an inner certainty. Faith is not a mere wish. Faith is not superficial optimism. Faith is not a rootless desire. Faith is a silent knowing, an inner conviction that declares, "This is real, even if I don't see it yet. This is mine, even if I can't touch it yet. This is true, even if the world says otherwise." Faith does not rely on visible conditions. It is rooted in the spiritual law that transcends them. Faith sees beyond the illusion. Faith is looking at an empty account and knowing it does not define your supply, seeing a closed door and feeling that a better one is already opening, facing an obstacle and declaring with serenity, "This too is under divine law, and all that is under divine law must work for my good." A soul that possesses true faith already owns the good even before it holds it in its hands, because faith is possession on the spiritual plane, and what is possessed there must inevitably descend into form. Faith, the law of manifestation. When Jesus said, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, believing you will receive," he was not establishing a random condition, but revealing an eternal law, the law of correspondence, between consciousness and manifestation. It is not enough to pray, one must pray believing. It is not enough to affirm, one must affirm knowing. It is not enough to visualize, one must visualize feeling. And that knowing, that feeling, that deep believing, that is what we call faith. Not blind faith, intelligent faith. You do not need blind faith, you need intelligent faith. Faith that knows the principle, faith that has observed how the spiritual law responds with precision, faith that has been exercised in small things, and therefore trusts in great ones. Each time you have declared something with certainty, and later seen it fulfilled, you have accumulated spiritual capital. This capital cannot be seen, but it operates with more power than any number in a bank. Faith as an investment. Faith is an inner investment, and like any investment, it grows with use. It strengthens when it is put into practice. It expands when it is not interrupted by doubt. But beware, doubt is the expense that depletes faith. Fear is the interest that silently consumes it. Complaint is the leak that weakens its energy. However, the aligned thought, the affirmative word, the feeling of anticipated gratitude, these increase its value and multiply its effect. No limits to faith, because there are no limits to divine law. Faith has no limits because the law it activates has no limits. But faith is not demand. Faith is not pressure on the divine. Faith is openness, receptivity, and trust. Faith is declaring yourself ready to receive. Faith is aligning yourself with the idea that it is already done, and then walking as if it were already reality, speaking as if you already had it, giving thanks as if it had already arrived. You don't need money to start, you need faith. Many believe they need money to begin, but what they truly need is faith, because faith, when held with integrity, will bring the money, open the doors, align the right people, allow the ideas to flow, clear the path. Money can be lost. Opportunities can change. Human support can fail. But true faith is unshakable, and whoever possesses it is never without resources, because they know that the greatest resource is in their own consciousness. Begin right now, regardless of external conditions. You can begin right now. It doesn't matter what you have externally. Begin by affirming that God is my source. I believe in divine law. I trust in the good. I know that everything I need has already been given to me in spirit, and it is now coming to me in perfect order. Say this each morning, feel this each time doubt appears. Declare it when you don't see the way, and you will see the way appear. Faith produces, it does not beg. Faith does not demand, it creates. Faith does not push, it attracts. And faith does not beg, it affirms. And that affirmation, when it is vibrant, when it is real, when it is deep, turns invisible substance into tangible form, because all creation begins in the unseen and becomes visible when the soul holds the vision, without interruptions, without fear, without interference. The truest wealth. This is the truest wealth, the faith that moves mountains, the faith that manifests provision, the faith that declares, I and the good are one, and therefore abundance comes to me effortlessly, because my capital is complete and my soul is ready to receive. Chapter 6. Visualizing with purpose, seeing abundance before touching it. The mind is the workshop of God. Within it, invisible forms are sculpted, and as they mature, they become visible realities. Everything that exists was first an idea. Everything you have in your life today was once an image in your consciousness. This is not poetry, this is not theory, this is spiritual law. And within this law, one of the most powerful instruments the soul possesses is visualization. But not a fantasy-based or whimsical visualization. A visualization with purpose, with direction, with spiritual intention. Seeing with the eyes of the soul. To visualize with purpose is to see with the eyes of the soul what has not yet appeared in form, knowing that by holding that vision, with faith, feeling, and alignment, the universal law has no choice but to reflect it into external experience. This is not about imagining for the sake of imagining. This is about creating from consciousness, with the certainty that every image, when held with clarity and emotion, becomes a mold for invisible substance. Jesus said, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." And how can one believe they have already received something that they cannot yet see? By visualizing it, by seeing the result in the mind, as if it were already real, by feeling the fullness of having already attained it in the present, not as a game of illusion, but as an act of conscious creation. The language of the soul. Visualization is the language of the soul, the way it speaks to spiritual substance. It is the architectural blueprint that tells the universe, this is what I desire to express. This is the form I want energy to take. And if that blueprint is clear, precise, and alive, manifestation will not delay. Purpose over ego. For visualization to have creative power, it must be born of purpose, not of ego, not of vanity, not of lack disguised as desire. It must come from the soul, aligned with its truth, with its desire to express more life, more good, more service. When you visualize from fear, the image loses power. When you visualize from urgency, the image weakens. When you visualize from doubt, the image scatters. But when you visualize from faith, from anticipated gratitude, and from inner peace, your vision becomes a silent decree, a vibrational command, a spiritual cause. Why many people visualize without results? Many visualize without results because they do it mechanically. They close their eyes and imagine something and then get up with the same worries and the same doubts at the same vibration. That is not visualizing with purpose. To visualize with purpose is to internally become the version of yourself that already possesses what is visualized. It is to assume the state of being that aligns with the reality you desire, and that assumption is not pretending, and it is inner transformation. Quality over time. Effective visualization is not measured by time, but by emotional intensity. 1 minute of clear vision filled with faith, joy, and certainty is more powerful than 30 minutes of blurry, indifferent images. And the more you repeat that vision, without anxiety or attachment, the deeper it imprints upon your consciousness. And your consciousness, as a creative field, begins to attract the people, ideas, channels, and conditions necessary to materialize what you have planted within it. Abundance begins with an inner image. You cannot touch what you have not first seen with the soul. A mind that only sees debt cannot create wealth. A mind that only replays the past cannot open new doors. That is why you must train your imagination, not to escape the world, but to transform it from within. Live it now, not in the future. Begin by imagining what you desire to experience, but not as a distant future wish. Live it now within yourself. Feel that you already are. Feel that you already have. Feel that you already stand in that reality. Walk in your mind as someone who has already received the answer. Then step into the world with that vibration. Speak from that vision. Act from that vision. Decide from that vision. Protect your creative power. Do not rush to tell others. Creative power grows in silence. Let your soul nourish it. Let your faith seal it. Let your alignment sustain it. And one day, when you least expect it, that inner vision will have descended into visible form, a natural fruit of an invisible seed that you yourself nurtured with your attention, with your emotion, and with your conviction. Visualize with purpose. Do not ask from need, create from fullness. Do not imagine for entertainment, see to affirm in substance. And remember, you are not inventing something from nothing. You are giving form to what already exists in the spiritual realm, waiting for a pure channel through which to express itself. That channel is you, and when your vision is clear, your purpose elevated, and your heart open, no power in heaven or on earth can stop what you have seen with the eyes of the soul from becoming your concrete experience. Because in the kingdom of God, whatever is seen with faith already is. Chapter 7, the word that will prosper, the creative power of conscious decree. In the beginning was the Word. So affirms the Gospel of John, and so has every school of spiritual wisdom upheld throughout the ages. The Word is not just a metaphor. It is the living speech, spoken with consciousness and authority, that sets the substance of the universe in motion. The Word is not an insignificant sound. It is not a mere expression of fleeting emotions. The Word is creative power. It is decree, it is law, and it is energy that organizes form. Speaking is a direct order to the universe. Every thought generates a vibration, but every spoken word amplifies, fixes, and projects that vibration into the world. Speaking is praying out loud, and every time you speak, you are sowing into the invisible field of creation. The universe does not respond to what you wish for vaguely. It responds to what you affirm with certainty, to what you decree with intention, to what you hold as truth through your words. God spoke and it was done, and you, made in the image and likeness of that same God, also create when you speak, not by whim, but by universal law. Every word is a seed, and every seed produces according to its kind. If you sow words of lack, doubt, complaint, or fear, you will reap their corresponding forms. But if you sow words of truth, abundance, gratitude, and certainty, life will precisely obey. The law does not distinguish between a joke, a lament, or an affirmation. It responds to the energy behind them. And if your energy is one of faith, if you speak from an aligned soul, if you decree from a consciousness of good, Then your word will prosper in that for which it was sent. This is not mere positive thinking. This is not suggestion. This is not self-hypnosis. This is not superficial positive thinking. This is the understanding that the word is the instrument by which consciousness expresses itself in form. Many pray with beautiful words, but then spend the rest of the day decreeing the opposite. Things are hard. Everything is going wrong. This never changes. I don't have enough. And then they wonder why they don't see results. You cannot affirm abundance in the morning and sow scarcity the rest of the day. You cannot declare faith and then speak from doubt. Your word must be aligned with your vision, and it must be an extension of elevated thought. It must be a channel for spirit, not an echo of collective fear. Prosperity does not begin with money. It begins with the word that comes out of your mouth, and that word must be alive, pure, directed, blessed. Declare what you desire, not what you fear. Affirm what you are, not what the world says you lack. Speak as one who has already received, and your word, clothed in certainty, emotion, and clear intention, will open paths where there were none. When you bless, you multiply. When you bless what you have, it multiplies. When you give thanks for the invisible, you make it tangible. When you speak from your unity with God, you cause the invisible to descend into the visible. That is a conscious decree, a spoken word, delivered with knowledge of the principle, connection to purpose, aligned vibration. Be patient, the word is a living seed. Do not worry if you don't see immediate results. The word is a living seed, and every seed needs time, silence, consistency, and to bear fruit. The important thing is that you keep affirming, not from desperation, but from certainty. Train your mouth to be a sacred instrument. Avoid idle words and avoid empty phrases. Avoid defeatist expressions. Do not join the chorus of fear or the language of lack. You are a creator, and you create when you speak. Speak words that align with universal law. Say each day, abundance flows to me from all directions. My provision comes from God and is unlimited. Everything I need has already been given to me in spirit, and now I accept it, affirm it, and give thanks for it. Speak these words, not as one who hopes for a miracle, but as one who knows they are fulfilling a law, the law of the living word, the law of the word that does not return void, the law of the decree that creates, sustains, and transforms. Your life will change when your word changes, and your word will change when your consciousness remembers that you are not separate from the power that created the worlds, that power is within you, and it is released when you speak as God speaks, with truth, with love, with certainty, because a word spoken in alignment is a word that will prosper. Chapter 8, the spiritual tithe, giving from consciousness, not obligation. Giving is not an external act. Giving is an internal manifestation. It is not about quantity, form, or moral obligation. It is about consciousness. The spiritual tithe. The spiritual tithe is not an imposed fee or a system of payment to the divine. It is a living expression of a deeper truth. God is your source, and you are a channel of divine circulation. For centuries, the tithe has been reduced to a mathematical formula, giving 1/10 of your income as a religious duty. But this literal approach misses the higher purpose of the act of giving, because when you give from fear, guilt, or obligation, you are not offering, you are trading, and God does not trade. God gives, and those who wish to receive like God must learn to give like God, freely, joyfully, without fear of loss. The spiritual tithe is not a financial transaction. It is an act of recognition. Everything I have comes from the source, and in returning a part of it, I declare that I trust the eternal abundance of that source. Giving does not diminish, it multiplies. Giving does not impoverish, it expands. Giving does not empty, it unlocks. And when the soul gives with consciousness, the entire universe responds with equal or greater generosity. You are not called to give out of pressure. You are called to give because you understand the law of the circle, the law of flow, the law of sacred exchange. Nothing in the universe is stagnant, everything circulates. Blood, air, light, water, energy, and money is also energy, in a concrete form designed to circulate. And when you allow it to flow through you, you are not losing. You are participating in the circuit of good. The spiritual tithe is not limited to giving money or to a religious place. You can give wherever your heart guides you, as long as you do it from a place of love, gratitude, and understanding. You can tithe to a person who has inspired you, to a work that elevates you, to a channel of light, to a cause that ignites your soul. What matters is not the external destination. What matters is the internal origin of your consciousness. Many ask, should I tithe even if I have little? And the spiritual answer is, if you believe in scarcity, you will continue to sow it. If you believe in flow, even if it's just a drop, when you share it, you open the door. The act of giving is a message to the universe. I trust that there will always be more, and that message has creative power. More than the amount, more than the frequency, more than the place. What generates miracles is the attitude with which you give. Some give large sums from ego, calculation, or desire for control, but such giving does not generate expansion. Others give what they can, but with so much faith, joy, and openness that their seed grows into multiplication. Because the law does not look at the amount, it looks at the consciousness, and when the consciousness is aligned with love and trust, every act, no matter how small, becomes a sacred act. The spiritual tithe also goes beyond money, giving your time with love, giving your attention with presence, giving your word with truth, giving your energy to a noble cause. All of this is the tithe of the soul, and when you give in this way, you are not losing time, and you are sowing eternity. The one who gives from obligation counts what they give. The one who gives from consciousness knows that what they give is part of themselves, and therefore they can never lose it. When you give with gratitude, what you offer becomes a seed, and the spiritual soil, which is consciousness, returns it to you 100-fold. Not always in the form you expect, but always in the form that blesses you most. Make giving a conscious practice, and don't wait until you have much to start. And start today with whatever you have, but with all your heart. And you will see that life responds, because by giving you recognize yourself as part of the flow, and those who recognize the flow live within it. Say every day, I am a channel of divine good. I give with joy, I receive with gratitude, I circulate with faith. The universe in me gives without ceasing, and therefore my provision is inexhaustible. This is the tithe that prospers, not the one that seeks profit, but the one that expresses truth, not the one that is measured by calculation, but the one that comes from the soul. And this silent, invisible, vibrant tithe opens doors where none were known, and showers blessings over a life that no longer fears giving, because it has understood that in God, nothing is lost and everything is transformed. And every act of giving is an act of receiving in the form of grace. Chapter 9, Abundance Without Guilt, Healing the Relationship with Receiving. Receiving is a spiritual art, and it is not simply taking what is offered, nor accumulating without measure, nor claiming it as a human right. Receiving, in its highest form, is accepting with gratitude what already belongs to you by divine right. However, many souls find it easier to give than to receive. In the act of receiving, guilt arises, judgment, the old conditioning that associates abundance with selfishness, vanity, and disconnection from God. But that belief is false, and as long as it remains active within you, abundance cannot flow freely, because the spiritual law cannot force you to accept what you internally reject. Guilt is an invisible barrier that blocks supply, no matter how much you affirm, decree, or visualize. And to truly receive, you must first heal that wounded relationship with the act of accepting good. God does not want you to live in limitation. He did not create you for scarcity or for perpetual sacrifice. He created you in His image, and God lacks nothing. The entire universe exists in balance, in beauty, in constant expansion, and you are part of that universe. You are not here to survive on the minimum, but to express to the fullest the fullness that already dwells in you. But for that, you must allow yourself to receive without guilt, receive without justifying, receive without hiding, receive without thinking that by doing so, you are taking from another. Abundance does not run out because you accept it. God does not distribute the good sparingly. The good is unlimited and personal, and every time you reject something good because you feel unworthy, you are rejecting God in you. You learned that being spiritual meant renouncing, that detachment was a virtue, but receiving was dangerous. You were taught to give but not to accept, to sacrifice but not to flourish. And that teaching, although born from good intentions, does not reflect the truth of the kingdom. Jesus did not live in opulence, but neither did He live in scarcity. He had what He needed when He needed it, and He never felt guilty for multiplying loaves, nor for accepting expensive oil on His feet, nor for sleeping under a roof when others followed Him into the fields, because He knew who He was, and He knew that supply was not a privilege but an expression. Receiving abundantly does not make you less spiritual. It makes you more available to serve, to create, to share. What good is it to desire to help the world if you cannot sustain your life with peace and sufficiency? What good is it to pray for prosperity if, when it manifests, you feel shame or discomfort in receiving it? Healing the relationship with receiving begins with an act of forgiveness. Forgive yourself for believing you were unworthy. Forgive yourself for rejecting the good that was already yours. Forgive yourself for associating abundance with selfishness. And then begin to affirm with power, I am worthy of receiving the good. It is mine because I am one with God. Receiving with gratitude is my embodied prayer. Receiving with joy is my way of honoring the source. When someone gives you something, do not minimize it. Do not say it wasn't necessary. Do not devalue it with automatic phrases. Receive it as one who honors the channel through which God expresses, and by honoring it, you multiply it. Remember that what you accept with gratitude grows, and what you reject with guilt moves away. You do not need to justify your well-being. You do not need to explain your joy. Your mere existence aligned with truth is reason enough for good to flow toward you. When you accept abundance without guilt, you bless the world, because you become a living testimony that God provides, that good is not a theory, that correct consciousness produces visible fruit, and then what you receive is no longer only for you. From that place of peace and fullness, you give with more generosity, serve with more joy, love with more freedom, not from sacrifice, but from shared abundance. Receiving is not a privilege, it is a divine function. Every breath is proof of it. God gives you every moment without measure. Who are you to limit what the Creator offers you? Open your hands, open your soul. Receive with joy without explanation, and let the world see in you someone who has remembered that accepting good is accepting God Himself, manifesting through beautiful, necessary, and perfect forms. Because when you heal the guilt of receiving, abundance no longer hesitates at your door with timidity. It enters with certainty, knowing that it has found in you an open home, an elevated consciousness, a soul ready to manifest heaven on earth. Chapter 10. Work as divine expression, transforming effort into a channel of prosperity. Work in its highest essence is not a burden, it is a sacred expression. It was not conceived by God as punishment, nor as an instrument of slavery, nor as a price to pay for survival. Work is a divine opportunity to manifest the inner life in the outer world. It is a way to give form, to serve, to channel creative energy. But when its true purpose is forgotten, work transforms into routine, into exhausting effort, into anguish. And then instead of being a bridge to prosperity, it becomes a wall that prevents the soul from experiencing spiritual supply. The law of life is expression. Everything that lives expresses. The tree gives fruit, the river flows, the flower opens, the sun radiates light. Thus the soul is designed to express, and work, when done from the correct consciousness, is not just an external activity, it is a prayer in motion. It doesn't matter if you sell, if you heal, if you teach, if you repair, if you cook, or if you build. When you do it with love, with presence, and with integrity, you are serving as an instrument of the Spirit. The world's mistake has been to reduce work to an obligation, a transaction, a means of survival. But the soul that has spiritually awakened works not to earn, but to express. And by expressing with truth, the universe takes care of remunerating, multiplying, and sustaining. Work is not the source of your sustenance. God is the source. Your job, your business, your activity is just a channel, and when one closes, another will open if you keep your consciousness aligned. But if you make work your God, if you give it the power that only belongs to the source, then you will be bound by fear, competition, and anxiety to produce. Work must regain its divine dimension. It is not a means to make money, it is a means to give the best of yourself to the world and trust that that good will return multiplied. Because that is how the law works. When you work out of obligation, you sacrifice your energy, but when you work for expression, you expand your soul. And that expansion is prosperity, even if it has not yet manifested in monetary form, because prosperity is not only measured in income, but in inner peace, in purpose, in spiritual freedom. If today you feel that your work does not reflect your soul, do not reject it. Transform it with your consciousness. Bless what you do, even if it seems small. Do it with excellence, even if no one sees it. Do it for God, not for the paycheck. Do it as if it was service to the Spirit, and it will be. And if the time comes to release an activity that no longer aligns with you, do it without fear, knowing that God does not abandon you. Every time you close a door in obedience to your inner voice, the law opens another one, broader, more perfect, more true. Stop struggling to earn a living. Life is already yours. You don't have to earn it. You must express it, and work is one of the purest ways to do so. Prosperity flows more easily when work is joy, because joy is a high vibration, and high vibration attracts blessing. You don't need to change activities to change your vibration. Change your inner attitude first, and you will see how the activity transforms or is replaced by a better one. If you have worked with suffering, forgive that past. Forgive yourself for thinking that effort was the only way. Forgive yourself for selling your energy to fear, and begin today a new relationship with your love. Declare, my work is a channel of divine good. I serve with joy, I give the best of myself, and the universe will reward me with love, with peace, with abundance. That is working as God works, not from need but from fullness, and not from fear but from trust, not to accumulate but to express. When you see your work as an active prayer, as a vehicle of the soul, as a sacred act, then effort will cease, and in its place, inspiration will flow. The certainty that you are exactly where you need to be, doing what the Spirit has given you to manifest, will emerge, and money will come, opportunities will arrive, and paths will open. Because the universe always supports the soul that works from truth, and has remembered that to serve with love is already, in itself, the highest salary in heaven and earth. Chapter 11. The Law of the Circle. Everything you give returns multiplied. Nothing in the universe is lost. Everything you emit, whether you think, feel, do, or give, makes a complete circle and returns to you in a similar form, multiplied. This is one of the most sacred laws of life, and its spiritual name is the law of the circle. It is not punishment nor reward. It is not moral judgment. It is vibration and cause. Once understood and applied with awareness, this law radically transforms your relationship with everything you give, especially your energy, your time, your love, your money, and your thoughts. The universe is not linear. It is circular, and the energy that goes out returns. The good you sow blooms, the love you give amplifies. The generosity you practice comes back to you in the form of unexpected provision, open doors, and surprising opportunities. And most importantly, all of this happens not by chance but by law. You cannot truly give something without receiving. Just as you cannot hold a sustained thought of scarcity without experiencing its reflection, life returns what you are, not just what you do. Because every action has a soul, the intention that originates it, and it is that intention that determines the vibrational quality of what you have sown. If you give expecting immediate reward, the circle is interrupted. If you give from guilt, you generate emotional debt. If you give with joy, with detachment, with understanding of the law, your sowing is pure and the harvest is sure. This applies to money, yes, but also to the words you speak, the energy you offer, the judgments you emit, and the attitude with which you face life. Everything goes out and everything comes back. And when it returns, it comes back multiplied. So do not fear giving, and do not fear sowing love, even if it is not immediately reciprocated. Do not fear offering the best of yourself, even if it doesn't seem valued, because the Lord does not forget, and what is sown in the invisible blooms in the exact time in the visible. When you help someone sincerely, you are helping yourself in another form. When you share a word of light, that same light strengthens you first. When you give money with gratitude, you bless your own provision. You are not losing, you are circulating, and what circulates is renewed. Look at the sea. Where is its abundance? In the flow, in the tide that comes and goes, in the constant movement. Stagnant water rots, stagnant money rots. Retained love withers. Unexpressed forgiveness becomes a weight. You are designed to be a channel, not a deposit. The law of the circle does not flow through those who retain, accumulate out of fear, or disconnect from the movement of life. Abundance belongs to those who understand that giving and receiving are the same act in different directions. There is no small act. Giving a smile is sowing joy, giving attention is sowing connection, giving understanding is sowing peace, and all of that returns to you multiplied. Not always from where you sowed, but from where your consciousness is prepared to accept. Make giving a spiritual practice, not as an obligation, but as participation in the harmony of the universe. Not as a strategy to get, but as a natural expression of one who has understood that to live is to be circular. Say with intention, I give from fullness, I give with joy, and everything I give returns to me multiplied. Nothing is lacking because everything that flows from me returns to me in greater measure. This affirmation aligns your energy with the law, and from that alignment, what once seemed like effort becomes fluidity. Give your talent, give your love, and give your service. Give your contribution to the world without expecting the return to come in the same form, but knowing it will come. Because what goes out with truth always returns with power. Do not ask yourself, is it worth giving? Ask yourself, am I willing to receive what I have sown? And if the answer is yes, then keep sowing. The circle is perfect, the law is faithful, and God, who is its source, never leaves without harvest those who sow with an awakened soul. Chapter 12. Gratitude as the Golden Key, the Spiritual Magnetism of Gratitude. Gratitude is not a reaction to what has been received. It is a creative force, a vibrational attitude that precedes blessing and makes it possible. While the world considers it a response after the good has manifested, spiritual consciousness knows that gratitude is the cause, not the effect. It is the golden key that opens the hidden deposits of the universe. It is the secret code of the soul that has understood how the law of supply works. Gratitude not only honors the good, it calls it, attracts it, and multiplies it. When you give thanks for what you already have, you are declaring to the universe that you recognize it as sufficient, as perfect as an expression of God. And in that recognition, your vibration rises to the frequency of fullness. And when you live in the frequency of fullness, you attract more of the same, because the universe does not respond to what you say you desire, but to what you are already vibrating. To give thanks is to affirm with emotion that the good is present, even when it has not yet manifested in form. This is why anticipatory gratitude is one of the highest expressions of faith. When you thank for what you do not yet see, when you give thanks for the invisible as if it were already visible, you are proclaiming that you fully trust the law, and that trust magnetizes the manifestation. Jesus, before multiplying the loaves, gave thanks. Before the miracle occurred, he thanked. He did not ask, he did not lament, he did not doubt. He gave thanks, and by doing so, he activated the abundance that was already present in the invisible, waiting only for the vibrational permission to express itself. You can do the same. You do not need to see first to give thanks. Thank to see. Thank not only with words, but with attitude, thought, and disposition. Make gratitude a state of being, a way of inhabiting the world, a manner of walking, breathing, and looking at life. Complaining, on the other hand, closes the channels of good, not because it punishes, but because it lowers the vibration, and when your frequency lowers, you disconnect from the flow of abundance. It is not about denying what hurts, but about elevating your focus above the appearance, seeing what is as a seed, not a limit, seeing in every situation an opportunity to declare thanks. Because I know that the good is also working here, gratitude transforms the small into the great, the ordinary into the sacred, the momentary into the eternal. It is the alchemy of the soul. With it, what once seemed scarce becomes an open door. Because when you give thanks, you are saying, I am ready for more, I am open to receive. I recognize what already is, and for that, it will be given to me in greater measure. Prosperity does not grow in ungrateful ground. Gratitude fertilizes everything. If you have little, give thanks. If you have much, give thanks even more. If you are waiting, give thanks as if it were already here, because that as if is the bridge between the spiritual and the material. Start practicing gratitude with intention. Give thanks for the water, for the light, for the food, for the word, for the breath, for the opportunity to serve. Do it not as a formula, but as an act of alignment, because every time you give thanks, you align with God. And God never leaves unanswered the soul that thanks with truth. Say every morning, thank you, Father, because everything I need has already been given to me. Thank you because my provision is perfect. Thank you because I am surrounded by good. Thank you because what is coming is even greater. Thank you because the law responds to my gratitude, and today I will see miracles. This affirmation is not poetry. It is a vibrational decree. It is an order to the universe issued from the consciousness of love, and the universe listens and responds. Gratitude is not a spiritual accessory. It is the core, it is the door, it is the confirmation that you already understand how life works. And when you live gratefully, you no longer wait to be happy. You are happy now. And that happiness, That fullness, that silent recognition, turns your life into a sacred magnet, and everything that is yours by divine right begins to appear as though it has been called by name. For gratitude does not ask, it attracts. It does not beg, it summons. It does not wait, it manifests. And in its powerful silence, it activates the highest principle of supply, the knowing that everything has already been given, and that all it takes is giving thanks for it to be revealed. Chapter 13. Silence and Wealth, the inner space where provision is born. In a world that idolizes constant action, external noise, and the desperate search for results, wealth seems to be the product of visible effort, the endless race of doing without pause. But true provision, the kind that transforms life from the root, does not arise from chaos, haste, or anxiety. It is born in the most sacred and forgotten place of the soul: silence. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of God. It is the fertile ground where consciousness becomes receptive to divine ideas. It is the inner space where the mind stops speaking and the spirit begins to whisper. And in that whisper is guidance, provision, a new idea, an unexpected channel, the solution you hadn't considered. Because God does not shout, God reveals and does so in silence. Those who do not know how to stop inwardly do not know how to receive. The soul, saturated with stimuli, words, opinions, and mental noise, cannot hear the voice that provides. Without that voice, the soul is left alone before the world, trying to solve from the surface what can only be transformed from the depth. Wealth is, first and foremost, frequency, not form, and that frequency can only be received when you become one with inner silence, not an empty silence, but a silence full of presence. A silence where you stop asking and start listening, where you do not make affirmations to convince life, but empty yourself so life can reveal to you what already is. Many people pray incessantly, affirm tirelessly, and decree insistently, and though these practices are valuable, if they are not followed by silence, the sowing remains incomplete, because in silence, the soil settles, the soul becomes still, and the spiritual seed begins to take root. Without silence, the affirmation stays in the mind. With silence, it descends to the heart, and from the heart, it becomes reality. Silence is not passivity, it is the profound activity of the soul. It is the moment when your thoughts align with the divine mind, and your feelings align with the truth of being. It is there where the illusion of scarcity disappears, where fears dissolve, where the channel is cleared for abundance to flow without obstacles. Practice silence as a sacred discipline. You do not need hours or complicated rituals. Just an instant of total surrender, a space where you stop trying to control, where you release expectations, where you simply say with your soul, "Here I am, show me, guide me, remind me that all is already here." And in that moment, without words, the idea that will change your situation may come, the certainty that replaces fear may emerge, or the clear image of the next step may appear, not because you searched for it with effort, but because you allowed it through silence. True wealth is born first in the soul, and the soul can only conceive it in the fertile void of silence. Like the seed in the darkness of the earth, like the gold within the mountain, like the pearl in the depths of the sea, divine provision is revealed in the deep, not on the surface. Quiet the mind so that the spirit can speak. Stop explaining, justifying, calculating. Just enter, just be, just listen. And in that being, the soul remembers its inheritance. There is no anxiety in silence. There is no rush. There is only presence. And in presence, everything already is. Make silence your daily refuge. 5 minutes of sincere connection with the source are worth more than hours of frenetic activity. Not because doing is bad, but because doing without being leads to exhaustion. And you are not here to exhaust yourself. You are here to manifest from fullness. Declare, "In silence I receive, in silence I align. In silence, abundance takes form. Nothing is missing because in silence, everything is remembered." And every time you return to that inner space, the outer world will be ordered according to your vibration. Answers will come, paths will open, peace will be constant, and money, opportunity, and well-being will no longer be objects of search but natural expressions of a consciousness that has learned to listen before asking, to receive before running, and to trust before seeing. Because silence is the matrix of all creation, and in it The eternal wealth of God takes form to manifest in your life, not by effort, but by alignment. Chapter 14. Eliminate financial anxiety. Mental peace as the foundation of provision. Financial anxiety does not arise from a lack of money, but from a disconnection with the source. The fear of not having enough, the anxiety about the future, the sleeplessness that accompanies upcoming payments are not material problems in themselves. They are symptoms of a consciousness that has forgotten who governs the supply. And as long as that consciousness is not healed, no amount of money will be enough to bring true peace. You could double your income and still fear losing everything. You could save for years and still feel vulnerable. You could get the job you always wanted and still live in constant tension. Because financial peace does not depend on what you have, but on what you believe about what you have, and most importantly, on what you believe about God as your provision. When you understand that God, the principle of absolute good, is your only real source and that all visible forms are simply temporary channels, anxiety loses its power. You no longer depend on a job, a person, or a circumstance. Your security moves from the changing world to the unchanging presence, and from there, the soul can rest. Anxiety at its root is a lack of trust. It is believing that you are alone, that you must solve everything, that if you don't push harder you will fall. But that idea is false. You are not alone. You are supported by the same law that sustains the galaxies, the same power that makes the field bloom effortlessly, the same love that feeds the birds without salary. It is the one that takes care of you. Anxiety arises when the soul wants to control, when it fears that if it lets go, it will be lost, when it believes that its well-being depends on the external. But the truth is that nothing external can give you what inner peace already contains. If you want to transform your relationship with money, start not by seeking more, but by finding peace in the now. Breathe, stop, look at what you already have, give thanks, and repeat in silence. I am supported by the divine law. My good does not depend on the world. Everything I need comes to me with peace, with order, with perfect opportunity. The restless mind blocks the flow, not because God withholds, but because an anxious consciousness does not know how to receive. It is closed, fearful, vibrating in lack. The law can only operate with freedom where there is openness and trust. Anxiety also contaminates your decisions. It makes you accept unworthy jobs, pushes you to act in haste, drives you to negotiate from fear, and all of that generates more chaos, more confusion, more imbalance. That's why the first step is not to act, it is to calm down. And from that calm, guidance will appear, the next step will be revealed, and order will return. You do not need to have everything figured out to be at peace. You need to be at peace so that everything can be resolved. Because peace is not the reward. It is the inner condition that allows supply to come without obstacles. Make peace your financial priority. Before worrying about the world, ask yourself, am I aligned with the peace that allows the good to flow? Declare every day, my security is in God, not in numbers or accounts. The peace I feel is the sign that everything is in its place. Nothing is missing, nothing threatens me, because I live in the law of good and it sustains me now. When you live from this consciousness, you will be able to walk among debts without feeling distress. You will be able to face an economic challenge without panicking. You will be able to hold your faith even when the facts seem to say otherwise, because your peace will no longer be a result of the external, but a reflection of your union with the source. And that peace is creative. It opens paths, attracts opportunities, dissolves obstacles, because it is high vibration, and high vibration always calls forth the like. You do not need to control, you need to trust. You do not need to know how, you need to remember who, and that who is God in you, working without noise, without delay, without error. Allow peace to settle before the solution, and you will see that the solution comes not as a result of your struggle, but as a natural gift of your alignment with good. Because when the soul stops running and enters the rest of the spirit, everything necessary begins to come, without anxiety, without lack, without fear, only with peace. Because peace is the sign that you are already at home, and in your home, nothing is ever missing. Chapter 15. Live as a channel of good, becoming a constant instrument of divine wealth. The ultimate purpose of all spiritual teachings about money and provision is not to accumulate more, nor to live in comfort alone, nor to demonstrate personal power. It is to become an open and constant channel of divine good. A soul that has understood the true origin of wealth no longer seeks to hoard it for itself, but to allow it to flow through them into the world as a living expression of love and law. You are not here to be a passive recipient of blessings. You are here to be a conscious conduit, a point of passage, an open door through which eternal abundance can take form and touch other lives. Being a channel means not resisting, not clinging to the flow, not fearing scarcity because you already know that the source is inexhaustible. Being a channel is not a privilege for the few, it is your deepest nature. You were created in the image of the Creator, and the Creator never stops giving. Just as the Creator gives, you have not come to accumulate out of fear, but to allow everything that comes to you, ideas, talents, resources, provision, to circulate, multiply, serve, and bless. When you understand this, fear disappears. You no longer ask, "What if I run out?" because you know that nothing can be lacking to the channel that remains open. The river that flows does not dry up, the air that renews itself does not stagnate, and the soul that gives in unity with God never empties. Being a channel involves responsibility, yes, but not a burden, a joy, because you know that you do not own anything, and therefore you cannot lose anything. You are a steward of good, not its origin. And this recognition gives you freedom. Stop thinking in terms of my money, my wealth, my achievements, and begin to affirm, I am a channel of divine supply. What flows to me flows from God and returns to God through me. In this consciousness, your life becomes an extension of the kingdom, and provision no longer needs to search for you because it has found in you a willing, trusting, and clean instrument. Living as a channel also means allowing yourself to receive, because a closed channel at one end does not serve its purpose. If you only give but do not receive, you interrupt the cycle. If you only ask but do not give, you hinder the flow. Giving and receiving are one in the law of the channel, and both require openness, humility, and faith. When you circulate good through words, service, resources, ideas, time, you are contributing to the universal order. You are affirming with your life that God provides, that abundance is real, that the law works, and this affirmation lived becomes a magnet. The universe responds to the useful channel by expanding its capacity. God gives more to those who know what to do with what is given to them, not as a reward, but as a natural expansion of the law. You do not need to wait until you have much to be a channel. You can begin now with what you have: a word that comforts, a coin that blesses, a talent that helps, an idea that serves, a gesture that uplifts. Every act is an opening. Every opening is one more door for good to flow. And that flow renews you, prospers you, protects you. Declare, I live as a channel of divine good. Everything I give enriches me. Everything I receive, I share with consciousness. I am part of the eternal movement of abundance. Nothing is denied me because I do not deny the flow, and where I am, the wealth of God manifests with grace, order, and perfection. When this affirmation becomes flesh in you, you no longer wonder if you will have or not have. You simply are. You are the channel, you are the bridge, you are the means, and the good that flows through you envelops you, fills you, and elevates you, not out of selfish desire, but because this has been so from the beginning. The soul that places itself in service to good becomes fertile ground, a brimming cup, a silent instrument of the wealth that does not deplete. And then your entire life, every word, every action, every decision becomes a living testimony that God not only provides, but seeks in you a pure, brave, and joyful way to pour His abundance into the world.